Donald Trump has a history of racism himself.
No, that's not true.
Are you kidding me?
Sorry,
Donald Trump started his career with racism. In the 1970s, he was sued for housing discrimination. In 1989, he was a part of he was led the lynch mob against the Central Park Five. In the 1990s, he was sued by casino workers for racial discrimination. He led a 5.5-year campaign against Barack Obama for allegedly not having an accurate birth certificate. Donald Trump came in office talking about he was going to ban Muslims, and he was called Mexicans were supposedly bringing drugs. Donald Trump has a long history. You didn't deny anything of the things I just said. Donald Trump just this year said that he's allowing white South Africans to come to the United States, but not black South Africans. What could be more racist than that?
I look at somebody that comes from Somalia where they don't have anything. They don't have police, they don't have military, they don't have anything. All they have is crime. And she comes in and tells us how to run our country. The Constitution says this, the Constitution. The whole thing is crazy.
The president is making no secret about his true motivation. I'll never forget my 2018 meeting in the Oval Office when President Trump rejected a bipartisan immigration deal because he didn't want any more immigrants from those, quote, S-hole countries. Now, there was some question as to whether he said that for years, but he not only confessed it, he bragged about it at a rally that he had in Pennsylvania, that he said those words. At the time, the president denied making those comments, and 2 Republican senators claimed I was lying when I confirmed them. Now, President Trump is not hiding his true feelings. At a rally earlier this week, he bragged about calling Somalia an S-hole country. Back in 2018, he has called Somali Americans, quote, garbage. This is racism, plain and simple. For the president to say he wants more immigrants from Norway, Sweden, and Afrikaners, what do they have in common?
Jasmine Crockett recently.
Jasmine Crockett. Remember what I said? Is she a relation to the late, great Davy Crockett? I don't think so. Jasmine Crockett, let me tell you, before you even ask, she's a very low IQ person. I mean, if we ever had to pass an aptitude test, that's the one should take one because she shouldn't even be in the crowd. So I have no idea what you're going to, but I don't think we should waste our time. This is a low IQ person who I can't even believe is a congressperson. Between her and Ilhan Omar and the group. You know, I met the head of Somalia. Did you know that? And I suggested that maybe he'd like to take her back, and he didn't want her. He said, "I don't want her." Okay, what else? Go ahead. Let's hear what Crockett said. Go ahead.
She compared ICE raids to slave patrol. I want to ask you.
To slave?
To slave patrol. I want to ask you if you think that there should be consequences for members of Congress who make these types of comparisons or use this language.
Well, I think she's gone over the line.
Look, attempting to turn this into a larger racial issue nationally, I think, is a really pathetic attempt by the media to try to turn this into something that it's not. Breaking news, a Republican state tried to create more Republican congressional seats under a Republican governor and conservative legislature. California is doing the exact same thing as a heavily blue state, trying to gain more seats for the Democrat Party in Congress to represent California, which many people would say is probably the most blue it's ever been, especially with the exodus of so many millions of conservatives leaving California under the reign of Gavin Newsom. I mean, we talk about checks and balances. This is not really a Supreme Court being a mouthpiece for Donald Trump conversation. This is a states' rights issue. And if we're really serious about checks and balances, shouldn't we be worried about the countless federal judges that are just blocking every single attempt by this particular administration to govern?
When people deny racism, it says a lot about them.
It's not denying the existence of racism. This is a Republican state trying to create more Republican seats in Congress to represent their state's majority. I mean, this is reality.
How did they do it?
Redrawing districts.
Answer that question. How did they do it?
It has throughout American history. It was the way our system was intended to work.
But you don't want to say that because it says a lot about you.
This moment in a bigger picture does harken back to one that we've seen before on the campaign trail. Like when Donald Trump said this when he was in Minnesota in 2016 about Somali refugees.
Here in Minnesota, you've seen firsthand the problems caused with faulty refugee vetting, with large numbers of Somali refugees coming into your state without your knowledge, without your support or approval.
The president has a history of nominating or appointing officials with racist beliefs, including Paul Ingracia and Carl Higbee. The architects of Project 2025 also have a very well-documented history of writing racist writing, statements or activity. And I won't repeat all of them here, but I do have a visual right behind me with just a couple of examples, including assertions that black people and immigrants have lower IQs than white citizens. We've known for a while that individuals differ in their inherent capabilities, that racists do too, with whites and Asians on the top and blacks on the bottom. That was from Richard Hamania, contributor to Project 2025. How about this one? The ceaseless importation of third world foreigners with no tradition of, taste for, or experience in liberty means that the electorate grows more left and less traditionally American, whatever that means, with every cycle. That's from Michael Anton, also a contributor to Project 2025. How about this one? The prediction that new Hispanic immigrants will have low IQ children and grandchildren is difficult to argue against. That's from Jason Richwine, contributor to Project 2025. What role does rhetoric like these quotes that I mentioned, what role does it play in promoting white supremacy and violence? And what happens when we give people who espouse this kind of rhetoric more responsibility in our civic institutions?
Well, rhetoric like this certainly furthers white supremacy and can further discrimination and potentially violence against marginalized communities, particularly in the minds of violent extremists when it combines with more extreme views like the Great Replacement theory, as it has done and killed people in this country. And when this rhetoric is also espoused by people who hold government power, members of these marginalized communities will fear not just that violence might come to their community, but also that the force of government might be used against them in various ways.
At this point, if you're still surprised by Donald Trump's racism, then either you've been living under a rock or I just don't believe you. How can you be surprised at this point? It's like his whole thing. As we know, Donald Trump's entire momentum got built from when he denied that Barack Obama was born in the United States because he's a black man. And then we know what he did when he came down the golden escalator talking about Mexicans sending in their worst and so on and so forth. It's been the entire thing. And every time he calls someone low IQ, they're either a woman or they're someone of color. You know, always, each and every time. You know, this very low IQ person because I'm Donald Trump and I'm such a genius and everybody knows how brilliant I am and how high my IQ is. You know, mister, I have to have pictures and one-liners on a single sheet of paper because I can't pay attention to anything longer than that. I mean, this dude is nothing but a con artist. So him calling people stupid obviously is an oxymoron and an admission of guilt because he knows that he is stupid. I mean, this even extends to Marjorie Taylor Greene. You know, this woman was one of his absolute most devout soldiers. One of the people that was on the front lines for him through and through. And it took so much for her to back off and jump off the sinking ship. And now all of a sudden it's Marjorie Trader Brown. You know, Marjorie Trader Brown, not Marjorie Taylor Greene, because he's so creative and so brilliant. Doesn't matter who you are, don't matter how much you've done for him. Eventually he's going to turn on you and he's going to see every single slight as a betrayal. But yes, we know Donald Trump is a racist and that's not going to change.